Well, I will try not to, we are coming back to the regulatory field again. I will try not to repeat very much with my previous colleagues. I think both Olva, Spooner, and Sabine Strauss has given a very nice overall picture of the activities we are carrying on. So I will just try to sum up a little bit on it and to provide you with some data. So how are we working in this network that Olva was showing before of different national agencies in the field of safety issues, consequences of medication errors? Well, before July of 2012, the safety issues were dealt with in the Pharmacovigilance Working Party of the CHMP. This was just a working party, and this was meant to give advice on safety issues, either at the request of the CHMP or at the request of member states. Since the approval of the new legislation in pharmacovigilance, after July 2012, we have a new committee, the Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee. The scope or the task of this committee is a little bit different. This committee has to deal with all aspects of risk management of the use of medicinal products, including the detection, assessment, minimization, and communication relating to the risk of adverse reactions, having due regard to the therapeutic effect of the medicinal product, and also it deals with the design and evaluation of post-authorization safety studies and pharmacovigilance audits. So that the PRAC could provide some added value on the evaluation, not only, well, of all kinds of safety issues, not only the ones derived from medication errors, because the PRAC has the unique opportunity of integration of different activities. As Olva has already mentioned this morning, in the PRAC, we are prioritizing an assessment of signals, including signals consequence of reported medication errors. Within the PRAC, the risk management plans are assessed. In this risk management plan, there is a planning for the identification of potential for medication errors of the medicines. There is also a planning of the risk minimization activities that has to be taken, as Sabine has very nicely posed, not only routine, but also additional risk minimization activities. And also within this assessment of risk management plans, we have to study the impact of the risk minimization activities we are posing. And this can be done through different ways, as Sabine has explained, but in the field of medication errors, we can measure whether the measures that we have implemented has had an impact on the adverse reaction frequency, and also sometimes there are specific surveys put in place in order to check whether physicians were really aware of the measures we were taking. And then we have the periodic safety data reports. We assess these reports systematically within the PRAC, and in these periodic safety data reports, all the data collected on medication errors, whether they derive from harm or not, are included. So within this talk, what I have tried to assess or to describe is the retrospective review of the potential safety issues, consequence of medication errors that have been discussed in the PRAC or in the previous pharmacovigilance working party, taking into account the caveats of the pharmacovigilance working party that was just an advisory body and did not systematically assess all the safety issues. I have tried to organize all the issues that have been discussed according to their cause, so that maybe this exercise could allow us to well, end up with some conclusions. There have been some issues that were consequence of the confusion on route of administration or on the target population. I will not get into details because we have had already some this example described during these days, but we have had the issue of the confusion with the rotavirus vaccine, which is a vial for oral use, and it has been used in some instances subcutaneously with the consequence of lack of effect. We have been talking also previously on the error of the bortezomib that was administered intrathecal instead of intravenous. And then we have had also a medication error on methotrexate in drops. These drops were given mistakenly to the newborn instead of to their mother because they were confused with the drops on vitamins that were given to the newborn. So that this confusion led to some fatal cases due to serious vasoconstrictor effects on the newborn. In this case, the risk minimization measure was clear in a way because the company requested to take out the drops from the market because in most of the European markets there were available capsules with methotrexate, but this was not the case in all member states like Spain. So now we are struggling trying to have the capsules available so that the drops can get out from our market. So sometimes the decisions are taken because of the heterogeneous markets in Europe are not maybe good for every member state. We have dealt also with errors because of non-standard posologies. We have complex posologies for some drugs, as you can see, sometimes very old drugs. But we have had problems with phosphenytoin since the dose is expressed on phenytoin equivalents, and for some, well, some physicians from some member states claim that it was this way of expressing those was prone for confusion. We have had problems with colchicine. Colchicine has a complex posology instructions. And this has led to very serious errors in some member states, not in all, but at least in some, and this has been tried to solve, well, clarifying these instructions in the SPC and the pill. And we have had problems that it has been already described in previous talks on methotrexate, because we have the same product with different posologies for different indications. And I have to say that despite of the efforts that we have all made in changing the instructions, issuing dear healthcare professional communications, even changing the outer package, we are still having cases of confusion with methotrexate and very serious cases. So at least in Spain, we are now working very closely with the Spanish Society of Rheumatology in order to try to examine in deep what is happening with methotrexate. Here you can see the busiest slide, and this deals with errors as a consequence of the marketing of new strengths, new pharmaceutical forms, new formulations, and new devices for an active substance that is already in the market. So this seems that is, at least in our experience, the major cause of errors that at least has come to our information. And here we have, for example, sodium oxybate, that there were overdoses due to new presentation of stringers And this dealt with very serious respiratory symptoms in several patients. We have Topotecam that already Andreas Laszlo presented us yesterday. It was an hybrid application of a generic with a higher strength of the infusion solution, and this dealt also to some potential confusions. We have memantine, we have reports of overdose because of a change of dispenser. We have the example that has came out this morning, and I think yesterday, the confusion between different presentation of tacrolimus, Advagraph and Prograph, prolonged release and immediate release presentation, and this has dealt two cases of graft rejection. This has been followed up by Ireland, and it is, in this case, is our lead member states with different questionnaires in order to make sure that the physicians are now fully aware of this issue. We have then also problems with the release or the marketing of prolonged release presentation of pramipexole and olanzapine, the pod formulation of olanzapine. We have had also problems reported with levetiracetam, overdose problems due to a change on the scale of the Singer. And we have had also problems with heptacoc alpha because of the release or the marketing of the new formulation with different strength, pack size, and storage conditions. And for some time, there was a coexistence between the old formulation and the new formulation, and this led to errors. So that what we can see is that despite that the marketing authorization holder tried to market this new medicines or the new formulations, new strengths, in order to improve the posology, improve the route of administration, and so on. In practice, this create problems because of doctors are used to handle previous formulation, previous strengths, previous devices, and it takes time until they are aware of these changes. Then we have also handled errors because of the disproportion between the total volume of the vials and the volume for injection. And this, has happened in new drugs like Revatio or Romiplastin, but this also has been recently identified also for old presentation of all drugs, like we have been seen before with perfalgan in children. There are also errors due to the complexity in infusion preparations and the complexity of method of administration. With the new drugs, we have more sophisticated preparation, also more sophisticated methods of administration. So this has also led to errors or potential errors. We have seen this problem with tocilizumab, also with romiplastin, with mecasermin, and also recently potential problems with a new device for intravitreal implant of dexamethasone. Well, the regulatory actions that are most commonly taken, you have had the chance to hear from my previous colleagues. What we normally try to address is the clarification of the product information, both in the SPC and in the patient information leaflet. We also sometimes try to provide clear instructions in the outer packages in order to avoid their errors. Sometimes we release the healthcare professional communication in order to warn physicians about the specific issues. And sometimes we put in place additional risk minimization activities through specific educational materials addressing the potential or the error that has been identified. As an example of this, we can, well, here I just include an example on N-plate, romiplostein, that it includes a very extensive educational material that tries to provide a dose calculator to simplify the calculation of the correct dose and a specific guide for the correct reconstitution and administration of the product. This is found in the European Public Assessment Report and it can be read at the website of the European Medicines Agency. And here you can see that there are guidance on how to handle this drug, guidance on the steps for reconstitution and administration, guidance also on how to calculate dose. And as you can see, sometimes even these guidance are quite complex in order to be handled at the practical level. So just to conclude, in our experience, the new presentations that are put on the market during the product life cycle and the complexity in preparations have been in the most frequent cause of errors. So as it was also said yesterday, probably the simplest is the best, and we have to all together work for the same. In our experience also, the interaction with patient safety organization is key. It has been expressed during all these days. I mean that we are in two different worlds that we try to orientate these medication errors from different perspectives, but these two worlds are complementary. And I think the most important issue is that these two worlds are speaking to each other, because I think that or what we have seen during all these examples, during these days, we, from a regulatory perspective, can simplify or can improve the instructions, we can improve the information of the medicines, but this will not succeed if in our side, in the other side, the patient safety organizations are not working at the same time in the improvement of processes. And I think the other way around is also true. I mean, only to improve the processes from our local health care providers, our national institutions of safety, patient safety, without linking to the improvement from the regulatory perspective on the medication information, will not work perfectly. So from my side, the most important conclusion for this workshop is that these two worlds have to really interact, because each of them has a scope on this field of medication error, and the scope of both worlds is complementary. And maybe this pharmacovigilance risk assessment committee, from a regulatory perspective, may facilitate the identification and follow-up of these medication errors from our regulatory perspective. So thank you very much for your attention.